This is the Samsung S23 Ultra, and people say this is the best smartphone that money can buy right now. I know there are other best smartphone out there which might knock this thing off, but that's for another day. Make sure you subscribe for that. But now let's see if the Samsung S23 Ultra can check all the boxes to become the ultimate king of the smartphone world. Before we jump into the video, let's give our acknowledgement to Raj for providing his own S23 Ultra for this video. Thank you, Raj. So now this Samsung S23 Ultra looks almost the same as the last year's S22 Ultra, but there is some major improvements in terms of the design. Like the sides are not that much sharp like the previous Note and S series smartphones. They are much more flatter and wider, which translate into more comfortable grip if you are the person who likes to use the smartphone naked. One thing I would really wish that if they had those rounded corners, that is much more comfortable on hands, and that would give much more confidence on your hand also. These boxier corners actually protrudes into your hand, and that might be sometimes annoying, but that will introduce much more engineering complication into the process of making these smartphones that great. Now the frame of this smartphone is made out of armor grade aluminum, and this thing is really great, but you'll find multiple antenna bands throughout the frame of the smartphone, 5G. And for the front and the back, they have used the latest offering from Corning, that is the Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and that is much more scratch resistant than the previous Victus Plus that was used in the S22 Ultra. Now in terms of design, the other key improvements are the metal ring around the camera lenses are more protruding. That might help you with the protection to the lenses. Now in terms of display, this is the same display as the last year's S22 Ultra, but if you notice that the curvature is much less on this S23 Ultra than the previous models. Some people might like the more flatter display, but some people might prefer the idea of the curved display because they looks more premium, and it is a distinctive feature for Samsung smartphones. There is no much major improvements on the display, but I think this display is enough. Now the Samsung S23 Ultra being some stuff that are unmatched with the rest of the smartphone market right now, including Apple, and that is that this has the fastest memory chip available on the market right now, which is the UFS 4.0, and the fastest RAM available for the smartphone, that is the LPDDR5X, and they have included the powerful SoC from Qualcomm, that is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, made for Samsung to take the advantage of those faster storage and RAM configuration. Now it is called the 8 Gen 2 for Samsung because Samsung has tweaked the 8 Gen 2. That means it says overclocked CPU and GPU. That means if you have other smartphone with the 8 Gen 2, that is not gonna match with the S23 Ultra because they have tweaked the SoC for this particular smartphone. Even though the Apple's A16 Bionic takes the edge in terms of benchmark, in terms of raw performance, it is neck and neck. Again, this thing actually fixes all the issues with the last year's 8 Gen 1. That means no overheating and a better battery performance. We have done benchmark testing, and here are the results. We have also played some demanding games like Aspal 9 with max settings, and this thing plays flawlessly. I have seen other reviewers testing with the Genshin Impact, which is the most demanding mobile game till this date, and they have reported that this thing plays really good. It doesn't throttles at all, and this thing actually refuses to heat. I don't know what Samsung has done with this, but this thing doesn't get that heated even after this sustained workloads. Unfortunately, we couldn't perform the CPU throttling test because it refuses that. I don't know what magic Samsung has done that this thing actually resistant to heat. The reality is Samsung has improved the thermals. Now with the One UI 5.1, Samsung has also refined those animations, and this smartphone just flows. In terms of performance, it will let you down anytime. Now the Samsung flagship offers some special hardware equipment that is not found in any other smartphone brands, and that is the built-in stylus pen, aka the S Pen. The S Pen lives inside your phone and charges wirelessly. It has wireless communication with your smartphone, so when you take it out, this thing actually is still connected with your smartphone, and you can operate many functions with the S Pen, and this thing is very useful for productivity tasks. Now in this S23 Ultra, they have given a rubbery matte texture on the S Pen, which feels really good on hands. Now the people of the S23 Ultra is that 200 megapixel ISOCELL HP2 sensor, which is developed by Samsung itself. Now in terms of smartphone, we used to think that the 12 megapixel is the sweet spot for smartphone cameras because they are already very small, and more megapixel actually end up in the grainier and artifacty image, but Samsung actually challenges that. They have outpassed those theories. They have fitted a 200 megapixel sensor, and it works. The images coming out of this 200 megapixel sensor is really good. Now by default, this thing takes 12 megapixel photos, which is done by pixel binning, and that's a great thing. It's good for your storage obviously, but anytime you can choose 50 megapixel or 200 megapixel photos right into the camera, and the images are very sharp as expected. Now it also has a 3x and a 10x periscope telephoto lens, each of which is 10 megapixel, and all these three lenses, like the main and 3x and 10x telephoto lens, these three lenses have optical image stabilization, and for the main lens it's just too much impressive. The ultra wide is a 12 megapixel sensor and it doesn't feature an OIS, but now Samsung opens up the opportunity with the space zoom technology. Now you can zoom into 100x, which is really impressive. Last year's S22 Ultra also had this 100x zoom feature, but the 100x images weren't that great, but this year they have improved it. Obviously we'll find some artifacts at the extreme end of the zooms, but it's there. Now while you are zooming in after 20x, this thing actually switches to the main 200 megapixel sensor, and I guess the 200 megapixel sensor's image is much more better than the 10x telephoto lens, which actually digitally zooms in up to 20x. Now this extreme zooming features is only usable in great lighting condition. If you have darker scenes, this might suffer. Now with the S23 Ultra, they also improved nighttime photos. Like the new sensor is really good in night also, but don't expect to be like those full frame sensor found on a mirrorless camera, because this is still a smartphone sensor and this is really tiny in terms of the size. So you will get grains, but that's not a deal breaker for nighttime photos. In terms of image stabilization, the Samsung S23 Ultra nails it. With the default setting, the stabilization is really very impressive. Obviously you can switch for the super steady videos. In that mode, the camera actually refuses to move. It's too much resistant to your hand movements that it would feel like you are shooting with the DJI Ronin 40, but that's your smartphone on hand. That much impressive is the stabilization on this phone. Now in terms of videos, all the 4 cameras on the back can record 8K videos up to 30 FPS, and this has all other options. And what I like about the Samsung is that they have the feature called Pro Video. In that mode you can choose whatever setting you want, as a professional camera. Like you can choose your white balance, ISO, focusing, and all the stuff. You can also decide the microphone polarity, like if you want it omnidirectional or it should be focused on the front or the back, whatever you want. So that's a really very good thing. And they have also built in the Expert RAW app inside the main camera app right now, so you can take raw photos without switching to the Expert RAW app on the S23 Ultra right now. Now in the Expert RAW app, they have introduced some features for astrophotography, astro hyperlapse, and you can easily take your galaxy's photo with your S23 Ultra and a tripod. Here are some image samples from the Samsung S23 Ultra, and the images come out really good. The colors are natural but yet punchy in typical Samsung fashion, and it looks really good. The dynamic range is really good. I appreciate how much detail it can capture. The 200 megapixel sensor really helps in retaining the sharpness in the images, and the images really look very good. Now one thing is really impressive about this S23 Ultra is that the portrait mode shots are more refined right now, and they looks really good. The selfie camera is now moved down from 40 megapixel to 10 megapixel, but the images are still really good. If you move close to any subject, the phone automatically switches to the macro camera, and you can take close-up shots. And the interesting thing is that all of the cameras have the similar color signs, and the colors matches perfectly with each other. The 12 megapixel ultra wide camera does its job, and you would really love the colors. We have also taken some shots of the moon, and this is not gimmicky one. The phone can actually capture photos of the moon, and they looks really good. We have already demonstrated low light shots earlier. Now let's take a look at some low light videos. They're really impressive. Now Samsung silently improved their stereo speaker system, and these are tuned by AKG obviously. Till now, this is the best sounding speaker you can get on a smartphone. The highs are really good, like it's really loud and it don't get distorted at this high, so that's a good thing. You can check out the sample. Now other minor improvements are the 5000 mAh battery. That's not an improvement, but as the 8 Gen 2 is much more power efficient, it will give you better battery backup than the previous year S22 Ultra. It has a 45 watt charging capacity, and you don't get the charger in the box, you have to buy it separately. This thing can be charged wirelessly with 15 watts, and it can reverse charge other devices wirelessly with 4.5 watts, which cannot be done with any iPhone, unfortunately. Now it's time to take a look at some cons of this S23 Ultra. This is not the best smartphone, right? Even one can make the best thing, the perfect thing in the world. The S23 Ultra doesn't have any headphone jack, which I really miss, but in this age, like, we can do. However, the screen to body ratio is now reduced, and this is almost at the same with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is a shame for Samsung. And we still have a chin at the bottom of the screen. And the other thing that we don't have micro SD card support on the smartphone, which I think isn't that bothering because you can choose for 512 and 1TB option. So yeah, does the S23 Ultra checks all the boxes for being the king of the smartphone world. As you might see, before we are having rumors about this S23 Ultra, Samsung said that no cost cutting, and they did it. They have given the best thing in the world available for smartphones in this S23 Ultra, and this package is currently the best smartphone. And this excellent hardware paired with the Samsung famous One UI 5.1, this thing is just a great combo. So this is my answer, that this is the best smartphone the money can buy right now. The only problem is that the prices are not the same thanks to the inflation. In Bangladesh, means my country, if I have to buy an S23 Ultra, I have to pay around $2,000 equivalents, which is not a very good thing because Samsung smartphones are also manufactured in Bangladesh. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please give a like and subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you soon in some new interesting videos. Till then, stay good, keep good, and keep doing beautiful things. And yes, of course, keep watching and keep doing Victor.